Gladiator, please raise your hand if you have a question.
Spoiler warning. X-Men 97 episode XXS Climax, which centers on two significant mutants who will shock and amaze viewers, promises a thrilling close to Season 1. Many were intrigued as to how X-Men 97 episode 6 would pick up the pieces after the devastating conclusion of episode 5. X-Men 97 episode SIXS title, Lifedeath, Part 2, hinted to a different plot point, Ororo Munroe / Storm's ongoing attempts. In X-Men 97 episode 5, Storm's quest to regain her mutant abilities took precedence over the countless deaths of the team. After being hit by a power-dampening bullet from the X-Cutioner in X-Men 97 Episode 2, Storm set out to see Forge. The appearance of a demonic monster known as the Adversary, failed attempts to restore Storm's abilities, and the developing romance between Forge and Storm were all covered in X-Men 97 Episode 4. Many believe that the plot of X-Men 97 Season 2 and even the rest of Season 1 would carry over from this one. On the other hand, the conclusion of X-Men 97 Episode 6 significantly advanced Storm's narrative and featured the reappearance of a significant mutant, indicating an exciting conclusion to the first season.
It doesn't matter while I cowered in the cosmos.
Subscribe to Movie Spy for more twist videos. Is Professor X still alive? The twist in X-Men 97 Episode 6 explained for the first time since the animated series conclusion. The renowned X-Men leader is back. Unexpectedly, Charles Xavier / Professor X is confirmed to be alive in X-Men 97 Episode 6. Although Professor X's death was never officially declared in X-Men, the animated series, his disappearance from X-Men 97 left many to assume he was dead forever. Nevertheless, it was established in X-Men 97 Episode 6 that Professor X is still alive and well, and that he leads a rather tranquil existence with the Shi'ar people. This corresponds with the conclusion of X-Men, the animated series, where Lilandra, the Shi'ar Empress, takes Professor X into space. As was disclosed in the conclusion of X-Men 97 Episode 6, Charles was able to regain his previous grandeur because of the medical care Lilandra had promised. Charles was even seen to be able to walk with the help of some robotic legs, made possible by the superior technology of the Shi'ar. Another twist was revealed following this one, though Marvel Comics readers won't be too shocked by it. This revelation concerns Charles's romantic life, as it reveals that he will wed Lilandra. The reasons behind Deathbird's wanted status in the Shi'ar power struggle to crown the engagement between Lilandra and Xavier was not favorably received by everyone among the Shi'ar. Even though Lilandra joyfully declared that she and Xavier would be getting married, not all Shi'ar people took the news well. Deathbird, Lilandra's sister, is the most well-known doubter. Deathbird makes it clear that she doesn't think Charles has Lilandra's best interests in mind. Deathbird expressed her disapproval of a possible union with humans through Xavier. Deathbird despises the people of Earth and believes them to be lower beings than the Shi'ar. Deathbird challenges Xavier's right to marry Lilandra as a result of this. To demonstrate his allegiance to Shi'ar's Empress, Deathbird insists that Charles erase his memories of Earth and the X-Men. Only then will he be allowed to wed into the royal line. Charles is initially hesitant to go through with such a drastic transformation, but he eventually agrees out of love for Lilandra. Nevertheless, when forced to ignore the X-Men during the challenge, Charles falters, which prompts Deathbird to try to overthrow him. Then, using his telepathic abilities, Charles enters people's thoughts and does what he does best, teach. What did Professor X see in the final scene of X-Men 97 Episode 6? When Professor X is informed of the terrible events of Episode 5, his lesson takes a grim turn. The Shi'ar initially started to have some mental changes as a result of Charles Xavier's lesson. Charles clarifies that coexistence, despite its potential messiness, can be a viable strategy for maintaining an empire, and that their cruel, despotic methods are not the only ones. X-Men 97 Episode SIXS lesson rapidly takes a dark turn, though, as Charles is informed of the impending attack on Genosha in a psychic vision. As the pupils in front of Charles turn into skeletons, the globe in the corner of his telepathic classroom erupts into flames. After that, in the climax of X-Men 97 Episode 6, Charles's anguish is only intensified as a gigantic Gambit figure materializes and then transforms into a skeleton like the rest. As previously mentioned, Charles's own psychic powers alerted him to what had happened on Earth through this vision. Charles soon learns that the joyful celebration he first perceived, where his kids, the X-Men, were having fun, partying, and sharing love, has descended into chaos, death, and darkness. Episode 6 of X-Men 97, the final final restoration. When Xavier, the team leader, does eventually make it back to Earth, he will inspire the X-Men to take on new challenges. Shaken out of his reverie, Charles informs Lilandra that he must go back to Earth. Though he had given up on the Shi'ar, pledging to validate Deathbird's feelings, Charles's vision forced him to act. Charles decides to help the X-Men again, rather than running away to another galaxy. In the X-Men 97 Episode 6 finale, he informs Lilandra that it's time to go back to his X-Men, which leads to the return of the titular team's commander for the rest of Season 1. How Storm recuperated her powers in the X-Men 97 final episode 6 inches. Storm's tale. An encounter with the adversary resulted in the recovery of her Omega-level abilities. The protagonist of X-Men 97 Episode 6 was Storm, who battled to preserve Forge's life following his bite and subsequent infection by the adversary. Forge's injuries can be healed by the juice of a cactus, so Storm is dispatched into a nearby cave to gather it. Unfortunately, in the climax of X-Men 97 Episode 6, the adversary follows Storm everywhere. Even though the adversary appears to be a villain in X-Men 97, Storm's powers can be restored thanks to the demonic creature. As it turns out, Storm's worries and fears from their earlier chat with Jean in X-Men 97 Season 1 are manifested in the adversary. Storm admits to Jean in X-Men 97 Episode 2 that she occasionally imagines what it might be like to be human and refers to the thought as a tempting daydream. These are the last words the adversary says to Storm in X-Men 97 Episode 6. This enables Storm to see that the X-Cutioner's weapon was not the only reason she lost her powers. She also overcomes a mental block brought on by her own delusion that it could be alluring to be human. Storm claims that before fully accepting her gifts and rekindling her mutant abilities, she thought this was untrue. Consequently, the conclusion of X-Men 97 Episode 6 discloses that Storm's Omega-level powers could only be fully restored if she accepted her reality, since Forge's attempts to lift the X-Cutioner's curse on her were successful in Episode 4. What was the X-Men 97 adversary? In X-Men 97, the adversary's origins differ slightly from those in the comic books. The conclusion of X-Men 97 Episode 6 indicates a significant departure from the Marvel Comics villain the adversary, even though it also affirms that the adversary was a manifestation of Storm and Forge's combined doubts and concerns. The adversity in the comics was a result of Forge's Cheyenne heritage. In the comics, a shaman named Naze instructs Forge in Cheyenne magic. The Cheyenne shaman's mortal adversaries, entities such as the adversary, are merely evil entities with the intention of destroying the cosmos. In the comics, Forge and Naze's magic abilities cause the adversary to confront Storm, and the X-Men must sacrifice themselves in order to be resurrected in a much more intricate and drawn-out process. It's evident from this tale that X-Men 97 decided to go in a completely new direction with the adversary. Rather, the adversary is a malevolent incarnation that is vanquished when Storm acknowledges her identity as a formidable mutant and an X-Man. The end of X-Men 97 Episode 6 revealed the villain responsible for the Genosha attack. X-Men 97 ultimately disproves or validates the countless speculations surrounding the villain of Episode 5. Following the conclusion of X-Men 97 Episode 5, rumors concerning the perpetrator of the Genosha attack began to circulate. From prominent X-Men enemies like Apocalypse, Bastion, and Cassandra Nova to recurrent antagonists from X-Men 97 like Henry Jirich and Bolivar Trask, there has been a great deal of conjecture on who carried out the Genosha massacre. The antagonist responsible for the attack is identified as none other than Mr. Sinister at the climax of X-Men 97 Episode 6. X-Men 97 Episode 3 featured Sinister, a recurring antagonist from X-Men, the animated series, as the mastermind behind the creation of Madeline Pryor, the kidnapping of Nathan Summers, and the techno-organic virus that sent Madeline and Scott Sun into the future and turned him into Cable. X-Men 97 Episode SIX's conclusion reveals that Sinister's schemes did not end there. As part of his ongoing vendetta against the X-Men, Sinister manipulates Bolivar Trask into turning on Master Mold and assaulting Genosha. He claims that this is just the beginning of a larger scheme that will be revealed in X-Men 97.